Tumblr's dead. I know that might come as a bit of a shock, but somebody had to let you know. No amount of Tumblr interns tweeting on Twitter about trying to get people to come over to their site's gonna change that. Hell, we even had the great pseudo-celebrity slacktivist exodus back in December of 2022 where they all said they were gonna leave and go to Tumblr. That would surely revive the site, right? Well, Mark Ruffalo's still tweeting to this day, and checking his account on Tumblr, he only got 34 likes on his last tumble, so. My point is, people like the idea of Tumblr. They like the idea of leaving Twitter and finding somewhere else, but wherever you stand on that issue, Twitter's still here, and Tumblr's still dead. So hopefully that all made sense, and I illustrated my point, and we can nicely transition into what I really wanted to say with this video, and that's that I think we should do some grave robbing. Okay, maybe not grave robbing. If we call it archaeological preservation, that probably sounds better. Let's go with that. Anyways, I've gotten my hands dirty digging through Tumblr so that you don't have to. And I actually found some pretty good, what do you call them? I found some pretty good creepy story blogs. I've dug through the muck, the grime, the degeneracy, the furries, all for you, so you should like the video and subscribe, please. And after you've liked and subscribed, sit back and relax. We're going to take a look at creepytalesoftheweb.tumblr.com. That's been my favorite one so far. I've actually read a few stories from it before. But what I'd like to do is go through the entire thing. Every single creepy story that was ever posted on there. I want to read, share, and talk about all of them with you. It's going to be fun. I hope you enjoy. So starting off this massive undertaking is a little story called Little Spook. A while ago, I was into Dungeons and Dragons. I was on a Discord call with one of my friends when I dropped my favorite D20. I looked for it, but it wasn't anywhere. I gave up and pulled out another and just kept playing. I went downstairs a few hours later and, directly under where I dropped it in my room, it was sitting perched on the TV table. It was on 20. I asked my parents and my sister, but nobody touched it. I swear I saw that table several times before I found the die, and it wasn't there. We used to live in a pretty old house from about the late 1800s or the early 1900s. Keep in mind, I don't typically believe in spirits, but my sister does, and she claims to be very perceptive and sees them often. Well, it started out with just hearing creaks and footsteps, until one night at dinner, my sister's eyes went completely blank. She started sobbing and talking about how she could, quote, see her, and she was trying to get in. Do you imagine if your siblings started doing that at the table? This freaked us all out a bit, but my sister was prone to panicking, so we figured it just might be that. After this event, she couldn't remember anything except the feeling of pure terror from that moment. A few days later, we heard a series of crashes. My sister keeps all her figurines and trinkets lined up on her windowsill, and something had knocked them all down in a domino-esque fashion while she was sleeping. She slept on a small cot in my room from then on, with the door closed, but we'd hear banging on the door from the other side often. At one point, we left the door open and I woke up with something sleeping next to me. I thought it was my dog until I looked up and there was nothing there but a dent in the bed like somebody was laying down. And I pushed the thing off and the dent went away. We had multiple people sleep over and claim that a little girl got in bed with them. Some of them even asked if one of us had gotten up and slept in their bed with them. After all this, we decided to research our house, and it turned out that a little girl had been brutally murdered by a man who used to live in our house in the early 1900s. A few days before we moved out, for unrelated reasons, I went up to my room to get some boxes. I saw a weird shadow, and I heard a voice as clear as my own saying, "It hurts, make them leave, kill them," and other things like that. I said it was okay, and it was over now, before running downstairs. Creepy-ass Victorian houses. Damn. Our third story tonight's called My Dad's House. It's actually pretty good. It even says 2 a.m. So, when I was a little girl, my mom and dad broke up because my dad wanted to be with his now fiancée, Melanie. So they live in a safe neighborhood in a good part of North Carolina. I've always had paranormal experiences as a kid. I was 12 years old and I was with my little sister at the time. So their house has 2 levels. The bedroom and the bathroom were upstairs, and Leah, my little sister, and I were in our bedroom with the door wide open at around 2 a.m. We were watching PBS Kids, and we heard footsteps running up and down the stairs. We thought it was nothing. An hour goes by, and I close the door while Leah's sleeping. But all of a sudden, the door opens wide, and I see a figure walking down the stairs. I couldn't sleep that night, and to this day I still hate going to that house. So, a few questions. What are they showing on PBS Kids at 2 a.m. in the morning? And also, if you heard footsteps going up and down your stairs, would you not think it's something? Especially if you're alone in the house? I don't know. I'm paranoid about people living in my house that I don't know is there, so I would have definitely at least thought it was something. Anyways, let's get into the 5th story. Or the 4th. I don't know. I think it's the 4th. This one's called It Ain't a Horror Story Without Empty Public Restrooms. If you have nightmares about bathrooms and toilets, you might want to skip this one. So, when I was a kid, my family and I went to church every Sunday. During service one day, I decided I had to use the bathroom. So I left to go upstairs where the restrooms were. It was incredibly quiet since no one was in that part of the building but me. You know where this is going. The bathroom stalls were odd. In order to close the door, you had to pull on it and wedge it between the frame. It wasn't difficult to do, I just thought it was weird. I don't know if it was the angle or the way it was built, but the doors were always shut, whether somebody was in the stall or not. Even if you left one open, it would just slowly swing closed by itself. Anyways, I bent down to look under the first stall and saw no feet, so I chose that one. While I was finishing up in there, I started hearing a woman humming. I paused and listened because I was so sure that nobody else was in there, but I didn't understand how I would hear her from outside the room either. It didn't even sound like an actual song or tune. It sounded like cut off pieces of different songs, or like somebody who seriously didn't know what music really sounded like. At that point, I was thinking that she must have entered the bathroom right after me and I hadn't noticed. It seemed like she was in the stall next to mine. I thought it was weird but continued to do what I was doing. The humming stopped and I figured she left. As I buttoned my pants up, I heard the humming again. Confused, I stopped and listened. Did she not leave? I looked under the stall to try and see her shoes. Sometimes I could tell who people were based on their footwear. But there's no feet in the stall next to mine, nor the one beside that. There's only 3 stalls in there, by the way. It was a small bathroom. I thought she was in front of the sinks. I opened my stall door, but found that nobody was there. The humming stopped. I crouched down and looked under all 3 stalls, and there was nothing. I was washing my hands when I heard it again, and it was definitely coming from one of the stalls. I dried off and glanced outside the restroom to see if somebody was out there. No one. And I could hear the priest in the other room speaking. Whatever I was hearing was not coming from the service. I stepped back inside the restroom and glanced around, trying to figure out where it was coming from. The humming had stopped again, but it was really bothering me that I couldn't understand what was happening. I also wasn't really in a hurry to get back to service, honestly. I stood there in silence and, after a minute or two, the humming resumed. I crouched down again and looked under all the stalls, only to find nothing. What if it's like the janitor's closet's next to the bathroom, and the humming's coming through the vents? I went up to the first stall door, the one I'd been in, and pushed it open. It became quiet again. There was nobody in that one, but that was expected. The second one I was scared to inspect, but my curiosity was strong. I forced myself to open the second door and found nothing. My fear intensified at the thought of opening the third door, so I stood in front of it for a moment. I quickly pushed it open and skittered away from it, even though there was nothing there either. I pressed myself up against the far wall, panting and staring in confusion. There was absolutely nothing here. Could I have just been imagining it because I was bored? Then, I heard the humming again, louder. It sounded like it was coming from the middle stall. I stood still and waited for it to stop, but this time it didn't. I grew anxious enough to run out of there and get back to service. I didn't use that restroom again for 2 years after that, and then when I did, I always chose a time when lots of other people would be in there so that I wouldn't be left alone. So yeah, maybe a bit uneventful, but as a coward and a 6-year-old, I was scared. Thinking about it still gives me an eerie feeling, but I doubt it was really anything sinister, paranormal or not. Okay, well, I think it's fair for a 6-year-old to be a coward. Like, I wouldn't call a 6-year-old a coward, but yeah, I stand by my janitor in the closet remark. I don't think it was a ghost, and I think we just got played. So, we'll do one more. This one's super spooky, and it's called The Cat Statue. When I was in high school, for my first 2 years before I moved to a different state, I had a friend named, we'll call him Drew. Drew was fun. He'd come over to my house and we would watch Goosebumps and I would cook for him. Well, the more time we spent together and the more I learned about him, I learned that he had a cat statue. Now in high school, I was fairly into paranormal things. I know a whole bunch about it, and I know how to keep haunted objects from causing mischief. You'll need to keep this in mind for later. So the cat statue. Apparently it was a family heirloom passed down through 3 generations of Drew's family. Okay, that seemed pretty normal. But then, he told me strange things about it. The statue was given to him as a kid, around 8 or 9, and before that nothing ever happened. But as soon as he got it, the weird things started to happen. The statue would never stay in one place at one time. It was constantly moving, and the family never knew where it was. So I asked him if his siblings had moved it. I wanted to help, but I was being skeptical as usual, as he had 3 younger siblings. But the statue was also moved to a very high location where the kids couldn't reach without help. Drew always told me that he wanted to get rid of it, but because it was given to him by his grandmother who lived states away, he couldn't bring himself to. He said that it felt off, that this ceramic cast of a statue had an odd aura around it. And it kind of went on like that. The statue would disappear for days and then reappear in strange places. On the top of the fridge, in the cereal cabinet, in a sock drawer, in the coat closet, weird places like that. He couldn't sleep if it was in the room with him, and sometimes the lights wouldn't even turn on. That's when the worst happened. The statue went missing again, and the whole family turned the house over looking for it, but they couldn't find it. Drew was yelled at for losing such a valuable family heirloom. I don't remember why he went to get a game from the closet that day, as it was just him and his mom there, but he did. The door to the closet wouldn't open, however. There was no lock on the door, and he was trying to open it. Confused, he asked his mom for help. She couldn't get it open either and told Drew to wait until his dad got home. Frustrated, Drew tried again, and this time it worked. He got the door open. But then he said the light didn't work, and he couldn't figure it out. Just as he was about to close the door and give up, the light suddenly turned on, and the cat statue was on the top shelf of the closet. Items moved away from around it. He was so freaked out that he left his house and came to hang out with me. Eventually, a whole bunch of us went over to his house, and I went over with the double agenda of checking out that cat. As soon as I walked into his room, I felt off and uneasy, and looked around the corner at the dresser. There was the cat statue. The closer I got to it, the worse it got, and the more I knew I had to help. Our other friends were with us and also knew of the cat statue. I remember their smiles dying when they saw my face. Yeah. I went immediately home after that and made a mix of salt to ward off evil, sage to cleanse, and pepper to enhance the power of the herbal mixture. I remember thinking, I have to help, and feeling absolutely drained after dealing with the herbs. Pepper absorbs energy around it to enhance the power of the spell. Herbs in hand, I rushed back to Drew's house. The gang was still there and looked relieved when I came in. Drew moved a crucifix to sit it on the wall above the cat, and I slowly caged the statue in. I remember accidentally bumping it into the herbs and feeling a sense of evil. I quickly finished encircling it with my herbs and said the Lord's Prayer over it. Drew said the activity stopped after that, and that he could sleep at night without feeling like he was being watched. And then a month later, his mom decided to clean his room and cleaned up the circle of herbs. It started all over again, and much worse than before. I had to move before I could fix it again, but I think they finally got rid of the statue a few years later. I haven't talked to Drew in years, but I'll always remember the panicked look on his face when he came over to my house that day. Oh, and a fair warning. Never ever do what I did, unless you know what you're doing. I worked with herbs previously, and I had a necklace with a protective charm on at the time. Bum bum bum. Well, what did you think of those? I always like those stories about people that are like, I dealt with spells and witchcraft before, so I knew what I was doing, and then we did you get it. But yeah, I think this would be a really fun series to do. Let me know what you think. I find that half the fun of this channel is digging around the internet and looking through the archives and all that for new stories to bring to you. So half the fun being that, why not try and make videos out of the process itself? But yeah, if you guys like it, we can go through like a page per video of the Tumblr account till we get through all of them. I think there's like 46 pages on this blog, so some videos will be like 10, 15 minutes, then some might be half an hour. Could be fun. I don't know. There'll definitely be some not so scary stories, but I think we can still have fun with them. And this will be our little way of preserving history, preserving a little piece of the dead internet. Anyways, if you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. Subscribing always helps, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. Alright, have a good night, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.